Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Transformational Talks with your host, Neddy Tanga. Today, it's a different talk show. I'll be your guest today, and I'll be talking about getting started. So maybe I'll just need to wait for a few minutes for people to be online, because I would really appreciate it if it is an interactive session. So maybe before I start, how are you guys? How is everything? It's really nice to be back on a Wednesday. I feel like this year is moving very fast. I don't know if you guys feel like that as well. So yeah, just waiting for people to come online. Come online, come online. So maybe we can start. So in the coming months, it will be my birthday. Welcome to my first like and my first viewer. Please feel free to engage with me in the comment section. So yeah, as I was saying, in the month of September is my birthday month. So this year I've decided to celebrate it differently. So I'm hoping to donate a few stuff to the less privileged, and if anyone is interested, please just let me know. So you can either donate pads, clothes, shoes, money, books, stationery, anything, or even your presents, because I'm also looking forward to be having mentors on the day, so that at least they get to empower the students as well. Welcome, Brandon Chwara. Happy early birthday, Coach. It's too early. It's too early. It's too early. I hope to see your contribution as well. So since you're online, I think I can start with you. Maybe, I would really want this session to be very interactive. So please feel free to answer in the comment section. And by the way, how was your day, Brandon? I didn't get to talk to you today. How is everything? I hope you did my assignment. So I'm hosting as well a mentorship session. So to those who are interested, please feel free. I think I'm only left with 3 slots. Then I'll be done for the month. So to my first reviewers, welcome. Please feel free to answer these questions in the comment section. Today we're talking about getting started. So the first question is, do you ever really get to start things? Do you get started in anything? It can be a project, it can be exercising, it can be eating healthy. Do you really get started, or it's always making excuses after excuses? So feel free to answer in the comment section. No, Candy, I'm not an August baby. I'm September. So yeah, I just decided to start the campaign a bit early. It's September. So anyway, please, Candy and Brandon, please feel free to answer these questions. Do you ever get started? Do you ever decide to start something and see it through? The second one is, what's stopping you from starting? Is it really a valid reason, or it's just an excuse? And what can you do better, when you decide to get started? So if you are free, please feel free to answer the questions so that I get started. So I'm just going to make a very short presentation. So I'm going to start on the reasons why we don't get started. So I remember years back, I was told to start a YouTube channel. Years back. I think it was like 2-3 years ago. For some weird reason, I had a reason or an excuse. I don't know if I can call it a reason or excuse, but a reason excuse at that moment. It was either my camera is not good enough, I don't have content. So, I kept on bringing so many excuses. But one of the projects that I managed to get to start early was the Connect with Mentors. That one was a good one. I'll explain why it was good and why it was easy for me as well to start on that one. So I've managed to gather up a few points for you guys. So please interact with me so that I know that I'm not talking Greek and everyone is understanding what I'm talking about. So the first reason why we don't get started, this one it's a valid one, and I would also want to talk about it maybe next time when we talk about why people miss opportunities. So this one is the first one. No clear goal or vision. So this is also one reason why we don't get started, because if the cause is not strong enough, you'll not get started. I remember there's this one favorite speaker, Jim Rohn, that I really like and appreciate. He said, in order for you to exercise right now, it might be really difficult. But if you go to the doctor and the doctors tell you that, you know what, Brandon, you are dying tomorrow, you need to start exercising. Definitely you start exercising. So a clear goal and a vision is very necessary. So if you decide you want to exercise, what is it that you want to achieve from the whole exercising habit, and what is the vision behind what you want to start? So I can give you an example. The reason why I started transformational talks was because I believe that the human nature, we solely rely on hope. So when we get to listen to other people's stories, we get inspired. So that was one of the reasons why I started transformational talks. Secondly, it's also an access to information. Like, for example, I remember in the month of February, I did personal development, I did grooming and etiquette. These are the little things that affect us when it comes to achieving our goals. So that was the main reason why I started transformational talks. The main reason is to target youth, at least to have 1 hour where you get to be productive, where you get to gain new information because you're a product of what you think. So that's why you notice that the tagline is change your mindset and transform your life, because you cannot transform your life if you haven't changed your mindset. So that was the goal. Then the second point, why we don't get started, is procrastination. I always tell people, and I always tell myself as well, that procrastination is a thief of time. It might not necessarily affect you now, because then that you haven't started, but time doesn't wait for anyone. And there are some projects or there are some activities that you're supposed to do that are time bound. So procrastination, yeah, it affects a lot of us. I don't know if you guys can agree, or maybe you've conquered procrastination, and if you have, please feel free to share with us how you've managed to fight against the thief of time. Then the third point is laziness. People are lazy. I actually am one of them sometimes. I'm just not motivated to do certain things. And I keep on procrastinating. So you see, laziness and procrastination, they're like husband and wife. They move together. So if I'm not motivated enough, I'll be very lazy. And trust me, I will not even be motivated to do anything. So this is also one reason why we don't get started. Laziness and procrastination. And Candy, yes, procrastination is one of the major reasons why we are not getting started. And it's also one of the major reasons why we are not doing anything to show for our time. I remember there's this one time, when I was at school, it comes to assignments. You want to do an assignment, then you go on YouTube, you see all those recommendations, and just seeing the stuff that you like, and you'll be like, I'll do this assignment later. Then you spend 2 or 3 hours on YouTube, and you haven't done your assignment. But come due date, you are now struggling to finish the assignment. It's because you've been procrastinating on doing the assignment. So procrastination is a thief of time. Then the other point is ignorance. We are very ignorant. We're an ignorant generation, and even the Bible says, "My people perish because they lack knowledge." We are very ignorant. Sometimes we don't realize some of the repercussions or some of the effects of what we are doing now, how they affect us later on. So you notice that, the moment you are very ignorant when it comes to certain things, you don't even get started. Like, for example, I can give you a very good example. Like some of us, have been ignorant on getting a license. I had no reason why I shouldn't get one, but I just didn't want to get one, you see. So it's ignorance, and trust me, it has costed me a lot. So to those who don't have their licenses, please, it's better to have it and not use it rather not to have it at all. The other point is fear of not starting, fear of starting something new. I've noticed that a lot of us, we are not adventurous when it comes to things that are productive. Yes, we are adventurous when it comes to other things, things that excite us. But when it comes to, things that are productive, they are not really exciting. So it's always that fear of starting something new. I can give you a very good example. It's not easy, like, for example, even to do like these lives, for me, it's a new area. I didn't go to school when it comes to all this stuff that I do. It's just something that I'm really passionate about. So it's a new area. So also that fear of not wanting new challenges. Because, like, for example, I have to admit, it's not every time when I feel like I want to do a live and be like, it's a Wednesday, but I have to show up at the end of the day. It's not every time when I have data, like, data is not expensive, you see. So it's always that fear. What if I don't finish? What if I don't do this? But at the end of the day, my mentor always told me that experience, I don't it's experience which makes you marketable. It's experience which makes you go places. Because, for example, when I talk about experience, I volunteered in certain organizations, and that skill that I got from those organizations, it has helped me to run my own organization. But under normal circumstances, I wouldn't have gotten that experience from anyway. So I just needed to take part in the organization. So maybe just to tell you a little story of how I got to start, I think about 3 projects before I move on to how we can fight procrastination, laziness, ignorance, and how we can make sure that our goals and visions, they are aligned to what we want. Because I think I need to explain this one on goals and visions. Opportunities do knock. Sometimes you just don't realize it, because part of your goals, you don't understand where you're going. So you're not also in a position to identify certain opportunities that comes your way. So in order for you to get started, it's important to understand the idea behind what you want to start, whether it's a business, did you see a gap in the market, whether it's a charity organization, whether it's it's having a YouTube channel. You need to understand the motive behind, because if the idea is not good enough, definitely you not pursue the idea. You continue making excuses of why you don't want to do that certain activity or start that organization, because the cause is not strong enough. So you need to understand the idea behind, because the journey is not easy. I don't want to lie. I think I've got now 6 months since I've been doing these lives, and I can tell you a lot of challenges that I faced, but it's because I understand the main reason why I started doing this Facebook lives. It's one of those reasons why I don't give up. Anyway, there's a comment from Candy, and it's what will people say that stops people from starting something new, which is very true apparently, because I can give you an example. I'm an engineering graduate, right? When I went on attachment, that's when I decided that I wanted to start doing makeup. So for me, it's a journey on its own. And it's always that fear that, what will people say? Because I remember the first day that I showed up at work with makeup, it's always, hey, you're an engineer, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? And secondly, it wasn't good enough. Really, it wasn't. Because I feel like society, it expects people to produce good results overnight, but they forget that it's a process. Like, for example, I'm giving an example of makeup. You just don't wake up one day and you're a makeup guru. It takes time, it takes months and commitment and consistency. So it's always that fear, of people judging you, people laughing at you. Because I remember I used to humiliate myself, like literally every day. My makeup was hideous. I don't want to lie, it wasn't that good. But at the end of the day, I understood why I started makeup. So that's why I kept on going. So it's also a point that society expects us to produce good results overnight. And because of that fear of not giving society, uh, that fear of not meeting its expectations, we tend not to start at all because, those discouragements, yeah, why are you doing this? Why are you doing that? It's not something that we really want when we're starting something new. So yeah, it's true. What will people say? It really stops people from doing important things, which is getting started. Thank you so much, Candy, for that contribution. Then, like I was saying, so I want to explain, I think 3 points before I move to solutions of how you can get started. So how I got to, to be good at makeup, it was just a decision that I made. Like, you know what? I want to do this. So I had to sacrifice my dignity. I had to embarrass myself like literally every day. Imagine going to work with eyebrows that are looking like cousins. Like the makeup wasn't good. But I decided that I wanted to get started. And, at least I'm happy. I'm happy with the results. I'm happy with what I see. Then how I got to start connect with mentors. It's a really funny story. It was after a few inquiries, because every time when I talk about certain things, I always mention my mentors because those are the driving force behind the brand Neddy. Those are the people who remind me of why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So everyone be like, so how can I get a mentor? How can I get a mentor? Then I started also approaching like certain people. Can you mentor this one? Can you mentor this one? Then I've noticed that sometimes people are not really forthcoming when it comes to mentorship. Then I decided to start an organization. I was quite fortunate because my mentor, when I told him about the idea, he was like, why not? Just give it a try. So I started with a WhatsApp group. It hasn't yet been registered, but it's fully functioning. You get it. So sometimes the problem is the reason why we don't get started as well is we expect to be having all the resources at once, and which is not practical. Depending where you come from. If you are like me, it's not really practical to start with everything, because I can tell you, like right now when I'm doing my lives, it's just me and my phone. If I thought about where can I get the ring light, where can I get the microphone, all those resources at once, I wouldn't have started these lives. So you also need to understand that you need to start with what you have. Then how I got to start these Facebook lives, just an idea that I came up with. I really wanted to work on my confidence when it comes to the camera. Yeah, I remember the first live video that I did with DTM, Coach Sivai Matondo. It was terrible. I was terrified. But now at least I'm happy. I'm getting better and better and better. So when I decided that I wanted to do Facebook Lives, nothing was in order. I didn't have a name for the program. I remember, if you see the first flyer that Postari made for me, it was Neddy Facebook Live. I didn't have a name, but I was like, you know what? I really want to start this. So coming to my solutions, the first point that you need to take note of, in Shona we say simbi inoro HRPs. You strike when the idea is hot, because the moment you continue procrastinating, you'll forget about the idea. because at a certain point it wouldn't matter. So simbi inoro ichapisa. So that's one concept that I actually use whenever I want to start something. I start immediately when the idea is still hot, when I feel like, what, I can definitely produce results. So I can give you an example. That's how I got to start connect with mentors. The idea was very hot. Then I created a WhatsApp group. So initially I was on my own. I started looking for speakers. Then eventually I had to look for a team. So some of these things, they come in stages. You don't have to be having everything in order at once. If you're fortunate enough, it's possible. But for some of us, we had to do it in stages. So you need to learn to start with what you have. I remember when I started my makeup, I didn't have makeup brushes. I used to use like those earbuds initially, and I didn't even consider that I was matching my skin tone. But at the end of the day, I understood that I really wanted to get started. I wanted to understand the idea behind makeup. And it's also the same with these lives. It's mainly my phone and me, and I need to purchase data. But imagine if I had thought of where am I going to get a good microphone? Where can I get a desk to sit on? Where can I get 1, 2, 3? At the end of the day, we don't get started. So the second point is you need to learn to start with what you have. It's very important. So you need to ask yourself where I am now. I want to start a business. Where I am now, how much do I have? What can I do with this $5 so that it can generate me $20 more to start the business that I want? So it's okay not to start exactly where you want, but you need to understand that you need to make small steps. Like, for example, I remember I was telling someone that it's high time we start normalizing vocational centers and polytechnics, because I feel like a lot of children, they feel like they are failures because they didn't manage to go through the pathway that was said that you go to primary, secondary, high school, then uni, then you've made it. But we forget that the path is not always that straight. Sometimes you need to go through vocational centers, sometimes you need to go through polytechnics in order to get to where you want. So what really matters is the goal. What is the idea behind, and how you get there, you just need to maneuver. So you need to learn to start with what you have. It's really, really important, and you need to stop making excuses. I myself, I always tell people this. I broke a limitation the day that I decided to sit on my bed and look at my camera and start doing these lives without thinking about whether my phone is that good, whether I need a microphone. Yeah, definitely at some point I'll really need that kind of equipment. But what am I doing now to gain momentum? And the next question, what am I doing so that I can find money to purchase that equipment? So it eliminates that laziness, because I remember when I did makeup tutorials, I always tell people that you love makeup, but you need to work so that you find money to purchase the products. And there are a lot of things that you can be doing. There are some who are gifted hairdresser, some can design flyers, at the end of the day. So you need to be creative when it comes to generating money and stop making excuses. But initially, what is important, you need to start with what you have. Then the other point is you need to move out of your comfort zone. I understand, sometimes we feel comfortable being at a certain position, doing certain things. We really don't want to grow because it's comfortable. But in order for you to get started, you need to move out of your comfort zone. I had to sacrifice my Wednesdays at 7 o'clock so that I make sure that I show up in these lives. So I had to move out of my comfort zone, because right now I could be doing other things, but I decided to, what, this is what I want to do. So it starts by making a decision. You need to make a decision that this is what I want to do, and you need to move out of your comfort zone, because you will not grow if you're in your comfort zone. I wanted to give an example, but anyway, I'll let this one pass. There's a comment from Gamu: learning, start with what you have. Exactly, you need to learn to start with what you have, because some are more fortunate than others. Some can afford, some cannot afford. But at the end of the day, it shouldn't be an excuse, because I figure like the problem is when we start with this whole perfect idea of how things are supposed to go, and the moment we don't get those things, we feel like failures, and we are no longer motivated enough to pursue the idea. So we need to start to appreciate what we have, and you move forward step by step. Baby steps. That was also another point. You need to learn to take baby steps. So like, for example, I'm taking baby steps with Connect with Mentors because I'm still active when it comes to WhatsApp groups. But definitely, when I need to start applying for grants, I will need to register it, I will need to look for money. But it's baby steps, because what matters at the end of the day, whether Connect with Mentors is registered or not, it's making impact. You get it? So you just need to start with what you have. Then the other point is, I feel like this one is, it's very important. You need to learn to talk to the right people when you've got an idea, because you cannot explain or expect a $1 mind to understand a $1 billion idea. So it's also very important. Who do you tell, when you've got a burning idea? Because those are the same people that will either fuel up your fire or quench your fire. So it's really, really important, because I was fortunate enough that most of these ideas that I thought of, I had people that I could talk to, and they could relate to exactly what I was talking about, and and they would actually encourage me to get started. So besides it being an inner force, the external force is also important, because people around you, in as much as we might say, hey, I'm strong, yeah, those people, they contribute. They are the voices that we feed in our head. So when you've got a $1 billion idea, make sure you're explaining it to someone who understands those kind of ideas. Because if you explain it to a person with a $1 mindset, they'll definitely discourage you. And also, when you tell people some of these good ideas, good initiatives, some of these things that you want to start, maybe you want to eat healthy, maybe you want to stop some of these bad habits, you also need to understand that people around you will get uncomfortable, because remember, you're in the same league, and people, basically, they like the idea that we're at the same level. So the moment you decide to become better, you are now making them uncomfortable. So you also need to expect a certain response from them, and it's okay, because you're making them uncomfortable at the end of the day. There's a comment from Gamchurai. Sometimes people look down on the vocational or polytechnic routes, but those are actually good routes as they are practical. I think lack of knowledge is what makes people not to like the route, which is true, because I remember from the first point that I said, lack of knowledge, ignorance. It's what's killing us. And I feel like as parents, as siblings, as relatives, we need to be knowledgeable enough to advise these youngsters, because at the end of the day, someone will just go to a polytechnic, but they are not motivated enough. But I understand if you go to a polytechnic and you really understand what you want, and if it's a degree that you're really looking forward to, you can still go to polytechnic, and later on, you can advance to university. So the problem is, we are told that you need to follow a certain path. So the moment you don't follow that particular path, that means you are not doing it right, and which is not true. Because at the end of the day, what matters is the destination. The goal is it's what really matters. Whether you've taken the road to university, polytechnic, scholarship, it really doesn't matter. What matters is you are reaching the goal. So I've explained on the point that we need to normalize talking to the right people. We're not telling everyone our ideas, because not everyone will be happy for us. And some people, you also need to understand that they will what's the word, they'll project their insecurities towards us. Because if I failed to do a live and you tell me that you want to do a live, I will start telling you all those things that will go wrong when you're doing a live. So it's also important to understand that sometimes people's insecurities are the ones who will be speaking to us. So don't be discouraged. What matters, you need to get started. So in conclusion, comes to that point, just know who to talk to when it comes to certain ideas. Don't just discuss them with everyone. Then I mentioned the part that you need to start with what you have. It's very important. Stop making excuses. Just start with what you have. You realize that you're going places. Because I can give you an example. I'm doing these lives with only my phone data and the lighting from this. But I can safely say that from the day that I had to begin these lives and now, the level of confidence, how I'm handling myself on the camera, I'm definitely growing and I'm learning so much. And through the process of looking for speakers, I'm also getting an opportunity to network. So that means my networks are growing. But imagine if I hadn't started in the first place, where would I be? So yeah, then the other point is don't compare yourself to people. I remember, if you haven't watched the video, please go on YouTube, Neddy Tanga, and watch one of the videos that I made. Understand your mode of transportation. Let us stop comparing ourselves to the next people, because I cannot compare myself with people who have begun their journey when it comes to organizations like 10 years ago. Definitely their mileage, those people are way ahead of me. And the moment you start comparing yourself to those people, you definitely be discouraged. So imagine if you're starting your makeup, for example, someone who's got 2 years experience of doing makeup, and for you it's just one day. Definitely the results are different, because never underestimate something that is called experience. Experience goes a long way, you see. So that's why even you realize, even in industries, those artisans who've been there for years, they really understand some of these things. It's because of experience. So do not underestimate experience. So instead of comparing yourself to other people, you should draw some source of motivation. Don't look at the end result where they've reached, but look at the lessons, some of the challenges that they faced. So that's where mentorship comes into play. Because if you really want to know something from someone, you approach them and you need to learn from them. And also another point, just normalize seeking knowledge or asking for help. It's not everything that you have to start on your own. You can make it a partnership. You can ask for help. You know what, I need to start 1, 2, 3. I just need a $10 loan. I feel like there are some people who are in a position to help you. So at the end of the day, one thing that I've realized is we create these obstacles for ourselves. We create these barriers. We make so many excuses that at the end of the day, we forget why we want to do certain things. And also another point that I mentioned, that you've got this idea of how things are supposed to start. They have to be perfect. Everything have to be perfect. So we also need to eliminate that mindset of perfectionism. It's not good, because at the end of the day, you miss the whole idea, because the whole idea is the experience that you have, on that journey. What are you learning? That is what is very, very important. And also, if you want to get started, it's also important to accept reviews, recommendations. I remember when I started my Facebook lives, I saw many recommendations. Sometimes before you start thinking that people are jealous, you just need to sit down and recall. And as I've said earlier on, you need to eliminate perfectionism, and you need to understand the journey. The journey is very important. At the end of the day, it's the reason why you're getting started. That's what keeps you going. So yeah, I think I've said enough for today. Please, if you've got questions, feel free to ask before I go. And I hope you've learned so much. Please get started. It doesn't matter. The problem is, we have this idea that if you want to make impact, if you want to do certain things, it has to be a very big, big idea. Rome was not built in a day. It was one brick at a time. So you need to be patient. Trust the process. Trust the natural, the natural how things work, the natural cycle of life. You seed the idea and you harvest. So it's very, very, very important that you are patient with yourself. Seed the idea, nurture it. Make sure that if anything is about to attack it, protect it. That is what is important. At the end of the day, you harvest. Thank you, Ivy. Great presentation. I learned a lot. Thank you. Thank you so much for your contribution. Please, I feel like I'm left with 5 minutes. Feel free to contribute, to comment, or even to share how you've managed to get started after a very long time. It's very important, to share with us how you managed to get started, because we all have our own obstacles, things that affect us from getting started. It can be the voices in our heads, it can be people around us, because everyone has got a certain idea of how things are supposed to be like, you get it. So they tend to project those insecurities or their failures towards us. At the end of the day, we don't get started. Coming from Gamchurai, thank you, Neddy. Very informative session. Definitely learned a lot today. Keep up the good way. Thank you so much. A comment from Chris. Powerful. Thank you for the wise words. You are welcome. Are there any more contributions or questions? And where my last words are, it's important to get started. Like, for example, I can tell you that Chris Mere is a very professional tennis player. He has decided to move out of his comfort zone, and he started his own academy called Top Chris. So if you've got a sibling, you've got anyone that you know who might want to play tennis, Chris is the right person. He's one of the best coaches that I can actually recommend. But I can actually say, well done for breaking a limitation, because a lot of us, we're afraid to get started because of the challenges that comes with getting started. It makes us uncomfortable. So at the end of the day, we decide not to start. Anything else? Anything else? Anything else before I go? So yeah, thank you guys for tuning in. If you've got any questions, please feel free to ask. But above all, just get started. The economy will never change in your favor unless you get started. Because at the end of the day, you start networking with the right people, you meet the right people. Because every time that I decide to start something, by God's grace, I always find help. I meet new people. You always tend to get that help. So when you get started, that's when you realize how the journey is like, where you need to stop, where you need to slow down, all those things. You start networking. So there is benefit in getting started. And what makes you a rich person is information. And some of this information, what makes people to relate to this information is not only about you reading it on Google, but it's about you talking about it from experience. So yeah, thank you so much for tuning in. Please make sure to get started. Stop making excuses. Stop procrastination. Procrastination is the thief of time. Don't be lazy. Don't be afraid to start new things. It can be a new channel, but just give it your best and make sure you learn as much as you can. And above all, understand the reason why you're getting started. That is what is important, because if you don't understand why you're getting started, you miss it. And when you don't get the validation that you're looking for or the support that you need, you stop, because you really don't understand why you're getting started. So I know I can go on and on and on and on. Thank you so much, guys, for tuning in. I hope to see you again next week. I'm hoping that next week we'll be having a guest, so at least they get to share with us on certain topics. So yeah, enjoy the rest of your evening. Make the right choices, make good decisions, mask up, stay safe. The world still needs you. There is still a lot that you need to achieve. So don't be reckless, be responsible, and make sure that you also look out for your friends. During this era, it's really difficult for a lot of people. Constantly check on your friends. Mental health is an issue. People are struggling. So just make sure you continuously check up on people, and also look after yourself. You're a lovely soul. God loves you. and definitely he's got greater plans with you. So the more you are well as an individual, that's the more you pursue your purpose here on this earth. So take care, mask up, be responsible, and don't be reckless. Cheers. Enjoy the rest of your night.